In today's video, you will hear some stories of victims who ended up being the bad guy later. If you like my content, do like and subscribe. I am creating content to try to raise funds for my dad's treatment. So if you want to support his ongoing battle, the GoFundMe link is in the description section below. Thank you so much for being here. And now, let's get started. Story 1. Ana Julia Quezada, a sinister deception. Ana Julia Quezada was dating a divorced man who had an 8-year-old son. One day, the boy went missing, sparking a nationwide search, with Quezada at the forefront. She appeared on television, tearfully begging for the kidnapper to return the child, often seen standing beside the grieving father, playing the role of a devastated stepmother. However, the tragic truth was far darker than anyone imagined. It turned out that there was no kidnapping. On the very day of his disappearance, Quezada had killed the child and then spent days manipulating the media, her boyfriend, and the public. She stood in front of the cameras, pretending to grieve, knowing full well what she had done. The motive behind her crime is believed to be rooted in jealousy and a desire to persuade her boyfriend to move back to her home country, using the loss of his son as a means to push him away from his past life. To make matters even more disturbing, this wasn't the first time Quezada had been connected to a child's death. In 1996, her 4-year-old daughter also died under mysterious circumstances. Quezada's actions shocked the nation, not just for the brutal act itself, but for her cold-hearted deception in the days following the murder. The case remains a haunting example of how far some will go to manipulate those around them. Story 2. Ian and Angela Diaz. Ian Diaz, a deputy U.S. Marshal, and his wife Angela orchestrated a sinister plot that shocked the nation. The story made headlines, even appearing on 60 Minutes, as a case of wrongful imprisonment and an elaborate scheme of manipulation and deceit. The couple accused Ian's ex-girlfriend, Michelle Hadley, of posting fake rape fantasy ads on Craigslist, intending to have Angela assaulted. This horrifying claim led to Michelle's arrest, and she spent 88 days in jail while authorities investigated the situation. As police delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the pieces didn't add up. It turned out that the entire accusation was a fabricated plot. Ian and Angela were trying to force Michelle to walk away from a condo she had purchased with Ian. The false rape accusations were a tool to ruin her life and push her out of the picture. Initially, it seemed Angela was the primary mastermind, and she pleaded guilty, receiving a 5-year prison sentence for her role in the setup. However, 5 years later, the investigation revealed Ian's deeper involvement in the scheme. He, too, was found guilty of his participation and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The case serves as a chilling example of how far some individuals will go for personal gain, using the legal system and false accusations to manipulate others. Michelle Hadley's wrongful imprisonment and the couple's actions highlight the devastating consequences of deception and abuse of power. Story 3. Ontario water gun incident. Harassment disguised as a fun game, a seemingly innocent water gun fight escalated into a full-blown legal battle in a small Ontario town, drawing widespread media attention. Initially, a local woman shared her side of the story, claiming she was facing assault charges after accidentally spraying her neighbor with a water gun while playing with kids. According to her, the incident was nothing more than a playful mishap, but it left her unable to return to her job as school support staff until the charges were resolved. However, a week later, the neighbor, a black man married to a white woman, released his version of the events, along with security camera footage that painted a very different picture. The man, who had reportedly faced ongoing, targeted harassment from the neighbor and others in the community, revealed that the incident was far from accidental. The video showed him peacefully mowing his lawn when the neighbor, standing behind him, deliberately instructed a child to give her the water gun before spraying him directly. The footage also captured the aftermath. where racial slurs were hurled at him, something he claims was part of a recurring pattern of racial harassment. The neighbors claimed that a language barrier led to a misunderstanding was quickly debunked, as the man speaks perfect English, dispelling any notion of miscommunication. What initially seemed like a minor squabble over a water gun turned out to be another chapter in a more serious story of racial tension and harassment, exposing deeper issues within the community that had previously been hidden behind a harmless prank. Story 4. The First Murder on a Train. The Case of Franz Muller and Thomas Briggs. In 1864, a train pulled into London carrying an unconscious, bloodied man named Franz Muller. When police arrived, Muller claimed he had been attacked by two men attempting to rob him. According to his account, he fought back, was shot, and the robbers jumped off the train, leaving him behind. However, this wasn't the truth. Franz Muller had attacked and robbed a 69-year-old banker, Mr. Thomas Briggs, on that very train. Muller stole Briggs' gold chain and pocket watch before brutally beating him and tossing him from the moving train. Briggs was found later, unconscious, on the tracks and died shortly after from his injuries. The police grew suspicious of Muller's story, and soon after, a pawnshop owner came forward, identifying Muller as the man who had sold him Briggs' gold chain. Realizing Muller was their prime suspect, authorities issued a warrant for his arrest. However, Muller had already fled, boarding a sail ship bound for New York. In a dramatic turn, Scotland Yard inspectors took a faster steamship, arriving in New York weeks ahead of Muller. When his ship finally docked, Muller was met not only by the waiting police, but also by a crowd eager to witness the capture of the fugitive. He was swiftly extradited back to London, where he stood trial for the murder of Thomas Briggs. This case marked the first recorded murder on a train and captivated the public's imagination. For a deeper dive into this gripping historical crime, the book Mr. Briggs' Hat offers an in-depth exploration of the case and its significance in the annals of criminal history. Story 5. The Tragic Tale of the Bluebell. Captain Julian Harvey and the Duperow family. In 1961, Captain Julian Harvey was found drifting alone at sea in a lifeboat with the lifeless body of a young girl, Duperow. Harvey explained to rescuers that he had been hired to sail the Duperow family around the Florida Keys on their vacation aboard a ketch called the Bluebell. According to his account, a strong wind had caused the ship's main mast to snap and puncture the hull, sinking the vessel rapidly. Adding to the chaos, Harvey claimed a fire broke out, separating him from the family and his own wife, who was also aboard. By the time he got into the lifeboat, the ship was sinking fast, and the only person he could recover was already dead. His story painted a grim picture of a tragic accident at sea. However, 3 days later, everything changed. Terry Jo Duperow's sister was discovered barely alive, drifting in a small cork dinghy. Dehydrated, sunburned, and near death, Terry Jo would eventually reveal a very different version of events. She recalled waking up to the horrifying sight of her mother and brother already dead. When Harvey saw her, he angrily ordered her to return to her cabin, where she hid under the covers in terror. She believed he may have been holding his brother's rifle. When the cabin began filling with water, she escaped to the deck, where Harvey initially helped her with the life raft. But when the rope slipped through her hands, Harvey jumped after it, abandoning her on the sinking ship. Her testimony revealed that there had been no fire and no accident. Her family had been murdered. Tragically, we may never know the full extent of Harvey's motives or actions. Hours after Terry Jo was rescued, Harvey took his own life in a Miami hotel room, taking many of the answers with him. Story 6. The security camera installation that revealed a disturbing truth. I used to install security cameras as a side gig, and one job really stands out. A friend of a woman going through a nasty divorce reached out, asking if I could help her. She was receiving threatening texts from burner phones. Her soon-to-be ex-husband was allegedly breaking windows at night, and on a few occasions, he'd even tried to set the house on fire. It was a terrifying situation. Feeling uneasy about the circumstances, I purchased a set of cameras and an NVR, then went over to install them one night in February. I've done jobs in some sketchy neighborhoods before without worry, but this time, knowing the danger this woman was facing, I made sure I was armed while doing the install. After everything was set up, I showed her how to use the system and told her to call me if she ever needed anything else. A couple of weeks later, I got a call from a fire investigator. The husband had apparently returned, broken a first-floor window, and thrown in a Molotov cocktail, setting the house ablaze. The woman and her 2 daughters were trapped on the 2nd floor, and they had to be rescued by police using a neighbor's ladder. One of the girls was hospitalized for smoke inhalation. The investigator asked for help in retrieving footage from the cameras. While walking him through the process, he told me that at the critical moment, the camera facing the bathroom window went blank. I explained that the system was highly sensitive to motion, and the only way for it to go blank was if the camera was tampered with or damaged. We checked another camera that could see the area below the bathroom window, expecting to catch someone approaching it. However, no one was seen messing with it from the outside. The only possible explanation was that someone had disconnected the camera from inside the house. A month later, I was driving to work when I heard the woman's name on the radio. I tuned in, and my stomach dropped as the full story unfolded. It wasn't the husband after Elliot had been her all along. She had been orchestrating everything to frame him. She had sent herself the threatening texts, smashed her own windows, and even set the house on fire with her daughters inside. The night she disconnected the camera, it was part of her twisted plan. I thought I was protecting her from a dangerous man, but in reality, I had unknowingly helped the real danger, the woman herself. Story 7. Brittany Norwood, the Lululemon murder mystery. Brittany Norwood, a former soccer star, was employed at a Lululemon athletic clothing store in a wealthy neighborhood. One fateful night, she worked the shift alongside her manager, Jana Murray, when they became victims of a horrific robbery. The next morning, a co-worker arrived to find a gruesome scene. Murray had been brutally murdered, stabbed over 60 times, while Norwood had suffered minimal injuries, with her pants ripped and tied. Initially, Norwood claimed that an African-American man had entered the store, killed Murray, and then attacked her. The police believed her story at first and allowed her to leave the scene. However, as the investigation progressed, detectives discovered troubling evidence. Text messages revealed that Murray had discovered Norwood stealing merchandise and was planning to confront her that night to discuss her theft and ultimately fire her. With this new information, the police turned their focus to Norwood as a suspect. They found her blood in Murray's car, which had been parked 3 blocks away from the store. Norwood explains that the supposed robber had instructed her to move the car and return to the store, a claim the police deemed implausible. As the investigation unfolded, Norwood was arrested, charged with murder, and ultimately convicted, receiving a life sentence without parole. It was later revealed during the trial that several people had overheard the struggle and fighting that night, including an employee at a nearby Apple store who dismissed it as just drama. This chilling case highlighted the tragic outcome of theft, betrayal, and the failure of bystanders to intervene. Story 8. The Charles Stewart Case. A tragic deception. In 1989, Boston was shaken by the case of Charles and Carol Stewart, a couple who reported a horrifying attack while sitting in their car at night. Carol, who was pregnant at the time, was killed, and Charles sustained serious injuries. The incident sparked a massive police manhunt for the alleged assailant, described by Stewart as a black man. As the investigation unfolded, the narrative began to unravel. Despite the public outcry and the extensive search for the supposed attacker, inconsistencies in Stewart's account raised suspicions. Over time, Evidence pointed towards the possibility that Stewart had orchestrated the entire incident as a carefully staged murder. The shocking truth emerged. Charles Stewart had killed his wife and faked the attack to cover up his crime. Facing mounting pressure and the impending charges for murder, he ultimately took his own life, leaving behind a tragic legacy of betrayal and deception. The case not only highlighted issues of race and justice, but also the devastating consequences of a lie that led to the loss of innocent lives. Story 9. Diane Downs, a mother's tragic betrayal. In 1983, Diane Downs arrived at a hospital in Oregon, claiming she had been attacked by a stranger who shot her 3 children during an attempted carjacking. Tragically, her daughter Cheryl was found deceased, while her other daughter, Christy, suffered a stroke, and her son, Danny, was left paralyzed from the waist down. At first, the story seemed plausible, but as investigators dug deeper, inconsistencies began to emerge. It was revealed that Diane was involved in an affair with a married man who had made it clear he did not want children. Obsessed with him and desperate to eliminate any obstacles to their relationship, Diane resorted to an unthinkable act. She shot her own children. The shocking truth came to light, leading to Diane's arrest and subsequent conviction for the murder of Cheryl and the attempted murder of her other children. Her case highlighted the depths of maternal betrayal and the tragic consequences of obsession, leaving a lasting impact on those who followed the story. Story 10. Balloon Boy Hoax, a family's desperate stunt. In 2009, a bizarre and frantic situation unfolded when Richard and Mayumi Heen reported that their young son, Falcon, was missing and had likely floated away in a homemade helium balloon that soared to about 7,000 feet. Witnesses claimed to have seen something fall from the balloon as it ascended, heightening the urgency of the search. As authorities scrambled to locate the boy, the balloon eventually landed, only to reveal that Falcon was not inside. The search took a shocking turn when the child was later discovered hiding in the attic of the family's home. The entire incident was ultimately exposed as a publicity stunt orchestrated by the Heens, who were seeking fame and attention. The truth came to light during a televised interview with CNN's Wolf Blitzer, where Falcon inadvertently disclosed, "You guys said we did it for the show." In the aftermath, Richard Heen pleaded guilty to attempting to influence a public servant and received a 90-day jail sentence, along with a $36,000 fine. His wife, Mayumi, was sentenced to 20 days to be served on weekends. Both were later pardoned by Colorado Governor Jared Polis, a decision that sparked further controversy and debate about accountability and parental responsibility. That is all for today. If you have enjoyed this video, do like and subscribe and let me know below of your thoughts. If you want to help in my dad's fundraiser, I would truly appreciate it. Hope you have an absolutely amazing day. You can also check my other videos on screen.